Cross the railroad tracks, turn the corner, cut it quick, ease into your driveway. No city.
Welcome to the Vault podcast and reviews, where music still matters. You can check out all our shows at YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, and Podomatic. Please rate, review, and most importantly, subscribe. Also, make sure to check us out on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And if you like what we're doing and you'd like to contribute to help us keep the show going, check out patreon.com/The Vault.
Hey, welcome back to The Vault. This is Robbie D. We've got Zan here, of course.
Howdy, folks.
And today we have my good friend and musician Jessamyn Orchard in the house.
Hello,
Say hi,
everybody.
Jessamyn. And today we're just kind of doing a little interview with Jessamyn here. She's a local artist here. She lives in Springfield, so you'll probably catch her playing her little guitar around every once in a while.
Absolutely.
Very talented, plays more than one instrument. First off, how old were you when you first decided to get into music?
Well, the music came a little bit later. The words came first. I think that was initially what drew me toward music. Was I had a serious love for words from the time that I can remember. I don't remember a time as soon as I could write that I wasn't writing poetry of some sort. Even before I really had a concept of what poetry was, I was creating that, and then that went into just these a cappella songs before I ever played an instrument, where I was just writing and singing and doing that.
Well, the voice can be used as an instrument too. Me and Zan talk about that a lot. So
yeah,
absolutely. I mean, when I was recording, we're talking some really basic harmonies. Me and my 10-year-old cousin on a cassette recorder at Grandma and Grandpa's house, kind of thing, singing songs like you were. Let's see, the first chorus of the first song I wrote was "Your eyes are so blue, I want to be near you." Very deep lyrics and amazing stuff there.
That sounds like some hair band lyrics. I love it.
Yeah, right.
It could be taken any number of directions, but I like to think I was ahead of my time there with that. But whenever I was 9, I started taking piano lessons. That was something that always interested me. Spent a lot of time with my grandmother as a child, and she had an upright piano at her house, so It just made sense. And that was really where that musical connection to the words was initially struck for me. I took piano through 6th grade, so I was 12, and it was at that same point when I started. I developed an interest for instrumental music beyond just the piano. I joined band. I played the flute, and I was drum major all 4 years of high school.
Oh, you were the one making people run.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. That's the fun stuff. But I switched from flute to alto sax when I was 15 because I really was drawn toward jazz band. That seemed like the cool place to be. And it was around that same time that I was at a pep rally, and I watched one of my friends. They were in this we thought they were fantastic, but it was just this horrible, high school garage cover band. And he was playing this purple Ibanez guitar, and they covered Glycerine at a pep rally. And I thought, I want to play guitar so badly. And I don't know what it was about that particular performance of that particular song, but I credit Bush's Glycerine for inspiring me to actually want to pick up and play a guitar. And but rather than an electric guitar, I went with an acoustic guitar, and that was kind of by happenstance because it's what we had already, basically. And I picked it up. I borrowed one from my cousin. He had it was an off-brand Dreadnought Sunburst Hummingbird guitar with it was like a action on it, approximately 3 inches, and super thick strings. So it took forever to push them down. My fingers are bleeding, but it was it was everything. It was like, I'm gonna learn this G chord if it's the last thing I do. And it consumed me from there. And once I got the basic elements of the guitar down, I immediately started writing songs with that, and it's just been an all-consuming fever since then.
Yeah, well, I know you have a very broad taste in music as well, because we collaborated actually, and we did 2 videos. The first one was just me and you and a foot tambourine. That's
awesome.
Right, and she played acoustic guitar and played the foot tambourine, and I rapped a song, and then we did another one with our buddy Mike, who beatboxes, and so we lost the foot tambourine at that one, but it was still a lot of fun. It was a good collaboration of music between like the acoustic guitar and rap, which you don't hear too often, you know.
And that's something too, is that, you know, I think for especially acoustic artists or artists that are kind of put into a folk or Americana category, it's assumed that there's a lot of music that we don't listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And for some of those people, that is very true. But for me, that's never been the case. And, you know, Robbie, you know this just because we've probably talked hip hop more than any other genre. As far as, you know, really deep conversations. Well, I would say it may be equal parts hip hop and then also looking at you know, country, good solid old real country music. And I've always appreciated that about our friendship, just because, you know, just because one particular element is what you're projecting or what you're making isn't necessarily, you know, the collective of all of your, it is a collective of all influences, but those influences can be all over the place.
Yeah, 100%.
If we can just get you to start liking St. Vitus now.
Yeah, well, I don't know, man. That's like, that's going to take a lot, you know. I'm going to have to
I get what you're saying, Jessamyn. I think that's awesome. I mean, that's the whole reason I wanted to start doing this show, is to just try to get so many styles out to so many different people, and not like forcing them to like it, but at least having them give it a chance, you know. And on that note, like, what was the first artist or concert, or what was the first like piece of music that you actually heard? I mean, you said Bush earlier. Was there anything else that kind of got you started in the path of that music meant more to you than just background noise?
Oh goodness, the music meaning more to me than background noise started very, very early. I was incredibly blessed to have been born to two amazing rock and roller parents who just really instilled a love in me for everything, basically from the British invasion up through the mid to late 70s. And that's what I was listening to. And it was wonderful because when I first started getting into music, listening to music, and that happened, I would say, probably whenever I was 10 or 11, that's whenever I really feel that the audiophile in me started happening, because it wasn't just about putting music on. I was becoming obsessed with songs, and
you weren't just hearing it
lyrics.
anymore. You were feeling it. You know, you weren't just hearing it.
Absolutely, and it was incredibly impactful. I mean, I remember sitting on the floor of my room and just writing lyrics down as I was listening to records. And, you know, I had the lyrics in the liner notes, but I wanted to write them down. That was something that I enjoyed how they looked on paper. I enjoyed, you know,
That's
even
awesome.
just penning them with my hand. There was a feeling there to that. And so, you know, from an incredibly young age, I've been I was a kid with headphones on, and I'm an adult with headphones on. I mean, it's always
that sounds
on.
familiar.
I was going to say, I think Zan just said that like 10 minutes ago before we started this. and it's funny, I used to do the same thing. I used to stay with my grandparents a lot, and they always had one of those big stereos with like the 6-disc CD changers. You know, they were like thousands and thousands of dollars back in like the early 90s. But I used to put headphones in them and just sit in front of it and just listen to music that she ordered me from Columbia House that I shouldn't have owned at that age. But yeah.
On that subject, if we could wax on that for just a second, my parents were awesome, because I graduated from high school in 2002, so Columbine and all of those things that really changed the way security happened in school and the way parents viewed the media that their children were taking in, whenever all of that was changing in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
You're
from down there too, aren't you, down in Arkansas?
I'm not from Arkansas, but I'm from about 20 miles north of the state line. So
right.
My home county borders the Arkansas line.
Oh,
yeah,
gotcha.
but, you know, very much, you know, in a very conservative area overall, just in general. And my parents, I mean, I was a good kid in school per se, and, you know, my rebellion didn't hit until my early 20s, and so it started in college and then went on through that era. But, you know, looking at it, as far as I remember, I went to school with so many kids whose parents weren't letting them listen to Marilyn Manson was the big one, or whose parents weren't letting. I remember specifically one kid, his parents absolutely wouldn't let him listen to Weezer for whatever reason.
Wow, that's bad.
Oh yeah, well, and and I look at that as like, if a kid wants to listen to Weezer, let the kid listen to Weezer. But I look at that, and my parents let me listen. My parents let me make my own choices on what I listen to. And that being said, I chose to listen to a lot of music, and I feel that they always thought that was, they respected that quality about me, and that was something that I felt a freedom. I felt a freedom to listen to what I wanted, and that's such a huge thing. Thinking about other kids that didn't have that opportunity.
Yeah.
My father, his grandmother was mad about some things going on, and so she took his crate of original Beatles records and took those out to the burn pile and set them on fire. Just to make a point. That would have never happened in my household, and I'm so thankful for it.
Yeah. I lived the same way you did. My parents let me listen to whatever I wanted. Most of it was like gangster rap and stuff, but
man, I'm just the opposite. I got a lot of my stuff taken away.
I remember you used to have to hide it.
Yeah, and then I think maybe that helped out actually, because then I would get my stuff taken away and I'd have to start listening to something else, and I'd start finding all these new bands and all these new genres that technically weren't devil music. So
well, and
is any of it technically devil music?
Yes.
Maybe King Diamond or something.
There was a lot of it.
I went through two different phases in my life where I completely cut out secular music from anything I was listening to.
Mm-hmm.
And those periods of time were very interesting just because I discovered a lot of really amazing bands that either identify exclusively as Christian bands or if they're just religiously affiliated. And that was a neat time too. And whenever you take all of secular music out of what you're going to say I'm going to listen to, that leaves nothing but discovery whenever you've not done a whole lot of listening to anything except secular music.
And you'll be
I totally agree. I was kind of in that same boat myself.
And you'd be surprised who's a Christian band. I mean, especially like a lot of the metal bands. There's a
Zayo is a perfect example.
Yeah.
As They Lay Dying, I believe, is a Christian band as well. POD, they may not rock anymore, but they used to.
Thrice.
Still not
Their
bad.
lead singer is an incredibly devoted Christian, and Dustin Kinsrew, and so many of their songs deal with that, if not completely directly, but metaphorically too.
Right.
And a lot of people write those bands off too, just because they're Christian bands.
I say that about Christian rappers all the time. If they would just call themselves rappers, then they wouldn't get put into Christian
I agree.
rapper box, and get ignored.
I understand why they're doing it though, because like Jessamyn just said, that between me and her, I mean, there's situations where we probably would not found artists if we didn't, start searching specifically for non-secular.
Well, that, and if they didn't come out and say it, then it'd be like they were hiding from it. You know what I mean? And in art, you can't really hide from yourself. That's kind of the point, is to bear all.
Yep.
That's one thing I respect a lot about Lecrae, just because he doesn't seem to slap anyone in the face necessarily with it, but he also does not step back for 1 second from what he believes.
And he'll mention it, he talks about it, but I mean, that to me, that's hip hop, talking about what you live, what you're going through. And Andy Mineo's another really good one too.
I was disappointed on his 5 Fingers of Death with Sway. Just got to say that.
But you got to think.
It made me.
I mean,
I love the stuff that he does, but I was disappointed in that. And honestly, that was the last thing I listened to of his, and that was actually just a couple of days ago. So I still have a sour taste in my mouth from it.
You can't judge people based on the 5 Fingers of Death on Sway. That is
disappointed me. I expected more.
I'd say 70% of the rappers that go on that would disappoint you, because that's for
agree.
the top notch. That's like, you got to be the best of the best. That's like home run derby stuff,
Well, I agree.
Zane, are you familiar with this? You know what 5 Fingers of Death on Sway is?
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
You know who Sway is? He used to be on MTV.
Yeah, I know who. Yeah, uh-huh.
So he's got a morning show, and he brings rappers on, interviews them, has them freestyle. The 5 Fingers of Death is he'll just have them freestyle, and he'll change the beat 5 times in the middle of while they're freestyling, and they just have to keep with the beat. And a lot of people can't do it, but man, you'll hear some of them get on there and just kill it.
And then
I'm gonna go look that up now.
There's a lot of really
amazing
good
people
ones.
like Wayne Brady, who aren't even rappers, who are just amazing improvisational artists,
right?
And completely kill it, which is fantastic too.
Donald Glover's a really good one too. Childish Gambino is what he goes by. But real clever guys. 5 Fingers of Death. But yeah, I could see why you'd be disappointed with that, because not everybody kills it.
And I definitely wouldn't kill it either. So just make.
Let's talk about some of the covers you do acoustically whenever you do your shows. You do some of my favorites.
My covers span my musical tastes. So Typically, my sound check for my sets is At Last by Etta James. Started out with that to get a good idea of how my guitar tone and how my vocals are coming through on my monitor. Some of my favorite covers that have been well loved at shows. I do I like to approach it like I say it's like a gospel song, but I cover Gin and Juice. And this is, of course, on an acoustic guitar, sometimes with a harmonica, and always with my trusty foot tambourine. I also
That's awesome, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I absolutely love when it's just one musician playing not quite the one-man band, but like I say recently, it's been a year or two. I cannot remember the guy's name, but he just played an acoustic guitar and he had a harmonica, but he sat on a suitcase and had a kick drum pedal backwards. So when he would stomp on it, it would hit the suitcase as a bass drum, and that's all he had, and it was great.
I have done that before. I have a kick drum that because I'm kind of I'm definitely a one woman band most of the time. I have an upright bass player who plays with me larger shows if I'm playing more of the downtown Saturday night kind of scene. I have an upright bass player that comes up, and I just added a loop pedal to my repertoire as well to kind of expand that. But with the kick drum, it's a lot to lug around. And whenever I went on a mini tour a couple of years ago, went down to Texarkana, Arkansas, and back and playing shows. And on that little tour, I used a suitcase with just that kick drum beater, and it was fantastic. And not only does it sound just fine, but it also gets a really nice crowd response too, because it's always like that's a suitcase that's happening right now. All right,
you get that good
that's
imagery.
Awesome.
You could have just hopped off the back of a train and came in and played a show.
Absolutely, hobo styling.
Yep.
So what was your first experience with live music, concerts, or just being in front of any kind of live performance that made you want to do it also? Again, circling back, you were talking about the guy playing the Bush song, but what else after that?
Well, like I said, I love music, and I'm also I'm a performer, and that's something that I feel for some people, they can write a song and it's a song and they've written it and they can play it and they enjoy it. But then there's that person who not only wants to write the song but wants to perform it and share that experience with other people. And my live concert experiences really made me want to do that. My very first concert was REO Speedwagon. That one didn't necessarily make me want to do that. It was interesting, and I was a kid, so it was something that was this rock and roll situation I was not very familiar with in third grade ish. But
that was probably a sweet show for a third grader.
Whenever I played, I think really as far as what really pushed me to want to play music in front of people was being involved with instrumental music and in high school band. That was something that I watched my friends play in bands. I played in the school band, and that I played sports whenever I was a kid, but as I got older, that team element, as far as like playing in a band and having that experience and presenting that project that you've worked so hard on to other people and sharing in that together, that's always been something incredibly appealing to me. And so I went to, in my younger days of going to shows, because I grew up 100 miles from Springfield, pretty much in the middle of nowhere. So as far as a local music scene, it was just my band friends and I playing music around at each other's houses kind of thing, and at school. So the first shows that I was really going to before I was playing them were shows of my friends. And that was something that I was already playing guitar, I was already writing songs. It was just about finding the gumption to take that next step and do it myself.
I don't know about you, but my favorite artists, my favorite musicians, they change constantly. So right now, who are some of your favorites, like currently?
Right now I've been into a few things, and they're, again, opposite ends of the spectrum. I find it really interesting, the recent kind of insurgence of popularity around Chris Stapleton. He's been someone that I've loved and loved everything that he's he's done. Not only has he written for every contemporary country music artist out there that has a well-written song, he's probably written it, but he was in a band called the Steel Drivers.
Oh,
and,
yeah. I know
and
Steel Drivers.
they're incredible, and he was their lead singer for their first album, and then after that he left and did his own thing, and then they continued on. But I've loved him since then. In fact, I cover 2 of their songs in my set.
Is one of them If It Hadn't Been for Love?
I do. Yeah,
That's
I
my
cover
favorite.
If It Hadn't Been for Love, and I cover Drinking Dark Whiskey.
Oh, nice. That's a good one too.
Yeah, but looking at him, his song "Whiskey and You" has been one that I have been listening to a lot. It's just a basic acoustic track of him singing that song, and I can't get enough of it. It's one of, I think, hearing that song with him singing it is one of the saddest songs I've ever heard, and I just want to continue putting it into my ears. So I've been listening to Chris Stapleton. I've also been listening to a lot of brand new. Deja Entendu is one of my favorite albums, and it's been one that's been on my mind a lot lately. So I've been jamming it out. I also just recently have a working record player, so I've been busting out a lot of my older albums and listening to lots and lots of vinyl, which has been making me really happy too. So I've been listening to like The Cars, Fleetwood Mac Rumors, trying to think, Doggy Style even was on my record player in the last week.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm all over the place.
Right. That's a good way to be, man. You got to keep yourself on your toes, keep the music fresh. It gets old, you know what I mean? It's like watching the same thing over and over again. But
I don't ever want to be a person that doesn't know what's happening musically, and I don't ever want to turn into the kind of, quote unquote adult that with kids these days and their music.
It's just a bunch of noise.
Right. To me, it's like if you're just seeing it as a bunch of noise, you're not listening to it hard enough. You're not listening to it with the right mindset. And I say, change that mindset, open yourself up a little bit to it. And I don't understand why everyone couldn't find at least some appreciation in everything that's out there.
And that's exactly what we're about here, 100%. Because I mean, I'm the same way as you are, man. It's like it makes absolutely no sense to me. Like, at least try. You know what I mean? You didn't have to try, but don't force it away.
Oh, for sure. And that's something too that, whenever you told me about the podcast, Robbie, and I started listening to some episodes and really seeing what's being done here. That was why I very much wanted to be a part of it, just because that the tagline that you guys are going with where music still matters, I think that's really important. And I think looking at everything from across a spectrum of genres. I mean, when this popular music was becoming a thing, there weren't as many genres as there are now. And with the blessing of the internet, I mean, you can have subgenres for days. And that is so fascinating to me to, jump down a rabbit hole and to have access to those rabbit holes, to jump down. That's one thing I'm happy that my nieces are growing up in a world where they're not limited to the crappy adult contemporary radio that shows up on the radio stations down at home. They have, and yes, you have unbridled access to a lot of things that may or may not be age appropriate, but you have access to everything. I mean, I couldn't have listened to K-pop when I was a kid, even if I would have wanted to. And I think that's amazing that kids now have that opportunity to expose themselves to that. And I'm super stoked to see, what the next 20 years does for music with these kids who have grown up with unbridled access to everything always. It's amazing.
I mean, there's all these young kids coming out, rapping now that are super good. It's because you're right, they have so much access to it. And I believe you're just like me. You're an avid Spotify user, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You actually you were the first initial hook for me into Spotify. You said, you're going to want premium too. And I was like, I probably am. And then I did.
You're next, Zan.
Yeah, you guys just brought up a lot of points that I want to ask, and no, I'm not going to join Spotify.
You can still buy CDs, bro. You can still
not doing it. The first thing is actually could go with Spotify. You mentioned trying to know what's going on in music, and that's something I really struggle with, and it's not because I'm not trying it's not like I'm like, oh, this new music sucks or anything like that. Because we just reviewed not too long ago an Obsequies album, which is a newer, obscure band, that I just happened to come across off of recommendation that is awesome. But I keep finding myself going backwards in time because it just seems like so much more of the newer music has no soul whatsoever. And all the older music, and when I say older, I mean mostly like 80s and backwards, it just seems like people care so much more about their craft. So I was just wanting to get your take on that.
The market's just more flooded now too. You know what I
Well,
mean?
and
Like
that's
she was saying,
that's another thing I was going to mention. You said that we have all this at our fingertips, but I almost wonder if people just take it for granted now. To kind of piggyback on what I said previously.
I'd say a lot of them do, but it also gives a chance for those other people who may not have been noticed before to kind of get out there too. You know, like Jessamyn, she could put her out. You could put your music out on Spotify. You just have to pay them to get a record label.
Well, let me throw this out there. I think someone who's an amazing example of what internet marketing can do is Josh Heinrichs, who reggae artist located here in Springfield, Missouri. I say located here. His home base is here. He plays all over the world. His last album, whenever it came out, it was called Rooftop Session. It debuted at #1 on iTunes Reggae. And this is a guy living in Springfield, Missouri.
I said a white guy from Springfield.
Absolutely. You know? And that's something that I have a lot of respect for his marketing approach, the way that he goes about getting his music out there. And it's constantly accessible, and he uses the internet. He has his own label. He is his own boss. He is employed fully by his music, and he's doing it through the magic of the internet. And I think, no, we do not live in a world now where you can necessarily take your demo into the radio station because they're going to have FCC hoops that they have to jump through, so they can't play it or it will cost them too much money. So yes, we're perhaps out of that era, and that sucks. But we're also in an era where you don't need to take it. You don't need to take it to the radio station because you can put it on YouTube, you can put it on Spotify, you can put it on iTunes, you can do that yourself.
Well, the radio station is dinosaur media too, really.
Yeah. I agree.
I don't know really too many people that just straight listen to radio anymore, so you're very valid point.
I do, but only because my CD player doesn't work in the car.
See, I don't. I listen. I mean, over listening to the radio in the car, I have a single earbud in, and that's how. I mean, I do that. I know I probably shouldn't, but I don't listen to the radio. If I'm going to take in, that's something too with the radio. If I'm going to take in a bunch of music that I don't necessarily know what track is coming, I would rather use a discover feature on Spotify or even put in something random into Pandora and see where that rabbit hole takes me, just because it's going to be geared more toward things that I like, and not necessarily the same thing, but with those various algorithms, putting together things that these songs have elements that you have a tendency to like, and you might like this, and I enjoy taking it in that way.
And then in that case, if you do like it, then you can look at it, see who it is, and then go look them up, and you can't really do that so much on the radio unless you've heard the song a million times. But
absolutely.
But and I'm bad about that's why I don't like Pandora, because when the song changes, whether it's my phone or not, I have to know who's playing, who it is. Like, so I'm either like, hey, just tell me who it is, or just set the phone over here, because I look every time. I need to know whether I like it or not.
One other thing I wanted to talk about that I ask every single artist we have on here is if you could just talk about, it's 2016, kind of the pros and cons of being an artist, and how to approach it from a business standpoint. I understand that people are not getting into music mostly. Actually, I would say about 99% of people that get into music are not getting into it for the money, but you have to have the money to keep going. You know what I'm saying? But
Absolutely.
There are things you mentioned that you don't have to have money for. For example, you can. I mean, how many people have become internet sensations by throwing a quick video up on YouTube or selling MP3 files on there? So if you could just cover, just because I'm interested, I'm always interested in this aspect of any musician, just kind of the struggles and then what's awesome about it in 2016.
Well, I would say that some of the things that could be considered the pros can also simultaneously be considered cons, which is, I guess that is contradictory, but that in my experience, I've seen both. With the internet being incredible, an artist no longer has to have that intercessor between their audience and themselves. So the accessibility is fantastic as far as when you look at various, social media pages like a Facebook page. If you have however many people who like your page, they're interacting with your page, you can speak directly to them at any given point in time. Twitter is another one that's great because you're talking directly to your audience regularly. Back in the day, it was write your name on this notepad and I'll add you to our email list. And then, I would send an email out once a month, and you don't hear anything back from it except if you get notifications on whether or not someone opened it. So looking at that direct contact with your audience is fantastic because you can keep their mind on you in some kind of sense, which would be it's a lot easier, I would say, than it used to be, especially in a time where for if you wanted to know what bands were playing in town, you were going to have to go to these places, check out the posters on the wall, see what's going on now, especially with Facebook. It's incredible. There have also been some apps in town that I really like that you can kind of put yourself out there, and if people are in a certain radius, even if they've never heard of you, it will pop up in their radius, and that app was Bands in Town. That's been one that's been really good to me as well, especially when I'm planning anything where I'm going out of town, because as an artist, you can use that to plan various venues, shows that are going on, bills that are open that you can jump into, and that's nice. And as far as selling one's music, I'm a huge advocate of Bandcamp. If you are going to sell music, what I really like about the structure of Bandcamp is that if you want someone to have to pay for your album or for your tracks, you can put a price tag on there. If you want the option of just a donation, but if you want to just give that music for free, that's also an option too. And I like that. I like that model a lot, and it's a really nice way to get tracks out there and also get a direct turnaround on it without having to invest the time, effort, energy into getting into Spotify, and with those, just because it's just a little extra process, a couple more hoops to jump through per se. Yeah. And for a lot of people, they end up paying a service to that takes care of all of those things in one. That's not something I've chosen to do. YouTube, SoundCloud. I like my music to be available for free online. Mm-hmm. I sell CDs at my shows because I know that some people still like physical copies of music like myself, and I have those there. They're always really cheap, but that's something that I wanted out there, but then I also have it, I have it as an option at shows too. But as far as, in any kind of local scene, I think that the same issues that have always been present are still present and will always be present regardless of what year it is. And that's getting people, especially in a very local scene, building a following and getting those people to repeatedly come out and see you every time that you're there.
Yeah, that's something that we struggle with, honestly, is getting this show in front of people. I mean, it's like people's attention span, especially now. It just seems like, not to get on a little rant here, but if you put a picture of a dancing animal or a picture of your food in front of somebody, people love it. But if there's any kind of person putting any kind of time and effort into something they love and they put it in front of you, it's like they don't care. What do you guys think?
Right. Yeah. No, that's true. It is, because you see, it's 15-second clips. It used to be 15 minutes of fame, and now it's 15 seconds. That's all you need. Is just that's what people want, man. Everybody's ADD now. You ever seen Uncle Grandpa? Jeez, man. I'll show you. Kids are ADD now. That show is made for kids with ADD. Sorry.
Well, it's adults too. I mean, I know people that maybe 10, 15 years older than me that I've known forever, and maybe they used to really, really be into music, just any kind, whatever. And it just kind of seems like it's fallen off. Like they just kind of listen to whatever's there, and they don't have a passion for actually listening and discovering new music anymore. So
like they stopped caring.
Yeah. I don't know what the deal is with that. If it's just society or I don't know.
I don't know.
Do you think that the era of the true top to bottom album is over in favor of singles and EPs?
I don't think so, especially with the resurgence of vinyl being the hip and cool thing, and then going back to Obsequies, the review we did of them. that album I think was designed to listen first to last, because if you were to just pick a single track out of the middle of the album, like I couldn't even tell you what the name was or anything about it, but if you sit down and listen to it from start to last, it was fantastic listen. So I don't think so. I think that's mainly like the mainstream music, you know, like there's been artists that I've heard something on the radio and I went to get the album, like, oh, there is no album. It's just the song, and it's just on iTunes.
We did that Demi Lovato album, and, you know, she had that couple of songs on the radio that were pretty popular, and for the most part, that was a pretty good album, minus, like, would we decide one song, 2 songs or something?
There was a couple, but, yeah, it was a nice surprise for being a mainstream pop album, yeah.
I'm glad to hear that. I always try to stay on the optimistic side, but then it's just, you know, whenever you see kind of one after the other, and the last couple of one that I remember from a few years ago, and it was a sugary pop song, but I thought there is real promise here, and this album will probably be pretty good. And that was Matt Nathanson and the song "Come On Get Higher." I loved that song when it came out. It was just syrupy, pop, sweet, overplayed, all of that. I bought the album. Horrible. And it didn't indicate the kind of songwriting talent that song would have suggested. And
so somebody else wrote that one.
Oh, yeah. And there was somebody else that and he's kind of odd and random because he was a one-hit wonder in the 90s, but he had a couple of songs that were well written, and I thought, I'm going to buy this album because I think this is going to be an album, and that was Duncan Sheik, and it was terrible. And I was like, I need to stop thinking that this is going to be what I get here. I need to stop giving these pop guys this kind of credit.
Well, when we did that Demi Lovato album on Spotify, they had Spotify sessions, and so it was her at like a small bar. It sounded like she's like pretty close to the audience, and it was basically acoustic. She had a band, but they were not electric instruments, you know. And so she really shows off her singing. It was better than the actual album.
See, that's awesome. And see, and I've heard before, you know, just as far as her raw talent, that it is truly there. And I think with a lot of specifically pop singers that are out now, we perhaps miss some of that just because of
well, I think they're produced and told to basically dumb it down because, like I said, I think society as a whole, they don't want to think about music. They want it there. I mean, there's studies out there that I've seen everywhere, multiple studies, about how the time signatures and the beats and the way that the songs are structured on the radio are specifically like aimed at people with like low IQs.
Yeah, verse, chorus, verse, like bridge, chorus, outro has been the standard model for the whole 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Of course, that's changing now. Did you guys hear that?
No.
The 3 minute and 30 second song average now in the United States on like radio charts now is down to 3 minutes and 15 seconds. So we're talking about attention spans lowering.
Well, and they only say like maybe 5 words in that whole song now. So
right.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I read something the other day that said like the most of the mainstream rappers write like their lyrical content is at a 3rd grade level.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, that's where society is on a music level, I think.
Right. Yep,
that's interesting. Because, I mean, newspapers across the board in the United States are written to a 7th grade reading level. That's the median journalism minor here, so I have random facts.
Oh, I was like, yeah, did we mention that Jessamyn used to be an English teacher?
This is true. But whenever I was writing for newspapers, that was something that they told me, was to make sure that it stayed at a 7th grade reading level and below, just because that was the average. So if we're talking here about a 3rd grade level in regard to, you know, lyrical content, I find that very sad, because we know just from a statistical standpoint that people can comprehend beyond that, and I hope that's not dropping also.
Right.
Well, I think it is.
It is. We're going to end up like the movie Idiocracy.
Exactly. That is dead on.
That movie at first, it was a dystopian chuckle, and now it feels more and more like it could be happening. That scares me to death.
I said that years ago to people I knew, and they didn't believe me, and now they do. So.
Yeah. Right.
And what's the movie? Is it Wall-E where they're all driving around in the little hover cars? They don't walk. It was
Nope.
It was a cartoon. It took place in the future, and everyone is just no one can walk, and so they all just ride around in these like hover cars, and it's the same kind of thing. It's like
So I'm going to put you on the spot here. List 5 artists that you would say are most influential, not albums, not songs, just artists as a whole. They don't have to be your favorite, but when you think of what inspires you to play and to continue playing, what 5 artists do you got for us?
5 artists. All right.
Sucks, doesn't it?
Let's do, I would say, brand new, Jimmy Eat World, James Taylor.
You don't want to leave anybody out.
I know I don't. I know I don't. So I guess I need to say, because I don't know any other way to go to this. The other 2 would be Tori Amos and Rancid.
Nice eclectic
Rancid?
mix, I think.
Yeah.
Nice. That's good. That's good. He asked me to name my top 5 favorite rappers, and I was like, dude, ask me anything else. That is such a hard question. So many. Don't want to leave anybody out, you know.
Yeah, but there's always just the artists that stand out that made a difference. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Like,
For sure. All right, so yeah, basically we're going to kind of wrap it up here a little bit. But first, we definitely want to know where we can find your music. You said you like to make it pretty accessible. So
on different formats, which is perfect, by the way.
Perfect. Absolutely. You have choices. It's all about choices. So
Absolutely.
Where can we find that, Jessamyn?
Pick your poison. On Facebook, you can find me at facebook.com/jessamyn.orchard.music. And there will be, I'm hoping, there will be spelling of my name either in the comments or somewhere in here. My YouTube channel is easily accessible at tinyurl.com/JessamynOrchard YouTube. I'm on SoundCloud, just /JessamynOrchard, and the same on Reverb Nation /JessamynOrchard. And on all of those sites, there's a myriad of music. Basically, between all of them, there's most of what's out there right now. I do have a MySpace still. It's awful.
What?
I do. I actually just looked it up this evening to see if it was still there. But it's terrible. But it's also still there. With some really early recordings from my first CD that I recorded with using Cakewalk on my Dell PC, using
Cakewalk.
my
that's good stuff.
Oh yeah, and it was my with the plug-in computer microphone boom. I recorded that.
If you ever used Cakewalk, then you're a true artist.
That's what I like to think.
I had Cakewalk.
But on YouTube, you can listen to my entire Friendship Confidential EP, which that came out. It's been a long time ago, but that came out in 2005, and that album really has been my favorite that I've recorded to this point. It's
an excellent album.
Thank you. It's it's 6 songs. It's about some really hard times. I would consider it, perhaps my most emo of all of my music. It's about, bad college breakups, some really difficult situations I was in, and I was listening to a lot of Dashboard Confessional and the early November in that period of time, and I think that's reflected a bit in the content there. But yeah, there's new music that's coming pretty soon. I've been writing a lot since I've been introducing the looper into my sets. That switches things up a little bit. I'm able to get closer to the experience since I play a lot of the instruments on my recorded CDs. It's basically myself and my producer and my best friend and my upright bass player, Dustin. We play all of the instruments on my recordings just between the 2 of us. So when it's just the 2 of us on stage, it's hard to recreate that full kind of album experience. So with the loop pedal, we're getting closer to that. I'm super pumped about what's going on with that. I'll be debuting the full loop set. I've got it's a really neat, eclectic acoustic showcase that I'm putting together at Lindbergh's Bar on Commercial Street in Springfield. And it's going to be on the 1st of April, and we're calling it April's Fools Acoustic Jam Night. And there's going to be some local groups. I want it to be just a nice reflection of the acoustic music in the area, and I'm super excited to debut the full looper set. That's something that's going to be totally new for me, and I'm pumped.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's April 1st at Lindbergh's.
Yes, it is.
Nice. Are you going to have your stand-up bassist with you that night?
Yes, I will. On that night, I will. I have there's a
thing.
Songwriter Showcase at Lindbergh's later on this month. Actually, it's next Friday, the 26th of February, and that one is really neat. 4 songwriters take the stage together rather than each of us playing a set. We each play a song and kind of talk about the song, its genesis, and play through it. And we all kind of jam up there together. And so that one will be just me solo, just me and my guitar with 3 other singer-songwriters. And that's the 26th at Lindbergh's, and that'll be at 6:30. It's the early show.
February 26th or March?
Yes. It's February 26th.
Be here this month. That's coming up. Definitely
Yep.
check that out also. What else you got for us?
Well, I guess I have one other plug, if I can, really quick. I recently started playing music at the Magic Bean Coffee House here in Springfield, which is really a Springfield institution and was also kind of the birthplace of Barefoot Revolution, which was a really neat band to come out of Springfield. And what I'm trying to do is create the anti-open mic, just in the sense that I feel like a lot of times open mics just lead to more open mics, and they don't necessarily lead to anything beyond that. And what I'd like to see are for performers who are looking to work their material out on stage in front of people who are also engaging in creative activities. So, I'd like people to bring an easel with a canvas and work on a painting, or bring a sketch journal and work on that. Bring your journal and write in it. Bring a book to read. Things that are creative. If those things aren't things that you do, bring a coloring book and some colored pencils.
It's just art. Tuesday of art, right? Just any kind of art. Just come and enjoy.
And I want, I encourage people to, if you write a poem and you feel compelled to share that, it's a good place for that to happen without that kind of open mic stigma to it. I want it to be more of an artist collective, and so we're calling that Acoustic Abstractions. And for the foreseeable future, that's going to be every night at the Magic Bean Coffee House on Glenstone here in Springfield from 9 to 11.
9 to 11 every Tuesday night, and that's really cool because then you kind of lose the pressure and the judgmental part of it of open mic. That's real cool. I like that a lot. So yeah.
Well, and it's completely open too, because I think a lot of times, and this goes for something like that a lot of people are going to kind of pigeonhole or have preconceived notions about what type of people are going to be there and what's going to happen. It's the same thing with like if you go to like a metal show and every single band is the exact same kind of genre, it's just it gets really stale. So I mean, opening it up to pretty much anything, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, completely agree. Especially if it's artists working out their songs, because it's what better way to do it than on stage? Otherwise, you're never going to get comfortable.
Exactly, and also what better way to do it on stage, in a room essentially full of other artists, and kind of sharing in that vulnerability together. And I find a real intimacy in that kind of exchange. I came up playing in coffee houses, so that was really what I was used to for a long time until I moved to Springfield and started playing in bars, where that's an entirely different atmosphere. And so while I love those bar shows so much, I miss that intimacy of that coffee house setting, but also I miss just being surrounded by people who are creating art. And I'm hoping that we get a community to come out and join us, because it's going to be really fun, and I think this could be the start of something really special here in Springfield.
That's really cool. I'll definitely be checking that out on Tuesdays. So yeah, we'll spread the word. We'll put it out there, and hopefully we can get a good thing going on there.
Fantastic.
And breaking news for anybody that doesn't know, which is none of you. Jessamyn's going to start doing reviews for us. Yay!
Yeah.
And it's going to be fun to have, for the first time ever, 3 and 4, possibly even more people doing reviews. So even more opinions on single albums to give it maybe even a more fair rating than just 2 people, which is still better than 1, which is what most people do.
And this is the first time that we have done a 3-person interview anyway. I know you guys,
We did one previously with Dan and Patrick at Heavy Heads Records, and we did that in store. But yeah, this is the first one we've done with 3 people. So Jessamyn, thanks for coming on, and looking forward to doing some reviews.
Absolutely, looking forward to being involved with this. I've been super pumped since I first heard about it, and I'm really excited to be on board.
And don't forget, guys, you can check out everything we're doing: YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, Podomatic. Subscribe, please. Check us out on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we will have all of Jessamyn's links posted in the comments below on this show. So thanks again for checking it out. See ya.